How to attract money in large quantities. Now I'll go straight to the point. There will not be any stimulating text or floating images. Nothing of that sort. It will be me in the next 10 to 20 minutes delivering pure and absolute game. The first is invest first, spend what's left. And I know this sounds easy to understand. It sounds very logical. But let me share the tricky part. And this is a philosophy that has helped me generate as well as retain, which you'll be learning over the point of this discourse. Generating and retaining income, they are two different things. So this has helped me generate as well as retain income over time. The moment my brother made his first 500K, look, I'm going to get a Mercedes GLE coupe, bigger than yours. I said, my friend, I have no interest in whether you get a Mercedes that's bigger than mine. All I care about is that you win, because a win for you is a win for all of us. But you're thinking like a peasant. This is how poor people think. Poor people are fixated on buying things that make them look good. Here's what you're going to do first. Yeah, I'm going to invest. No, listen to me. Invest first. Spend what's left. It has nothing to do with the monetary income, because majority are waiting till they hit that big break, till they get that tons of money. But the chance of you hitting that big break, let alone applying this principle when it happens, and the single digits, because you humans are creatures of habits. And if you notice in your life, there are patterns you execute unconsciously to your detriment or profit. But the key point is that every single one of us has pattern we execute unconsciously. Wealth, as you know, it is a mindset. The game or the aim of this principle is to instill in you the mindset of a wealthy individual. So create your digital portfolio, diversify in real estate and all other investment vehicles. Mind you, I'm not trying to tell you what to invest in. So diversify your portfolio. Once you're done with that, spend what's left. It's a mindset. Because seasons of opportunities would come. There's something called the law of time and chance. According to that law, there will be a point in your life where you have high influx of cash. High influx of cash. I know I'm speaking to a younger demographic, but I'm sure there are older ones listening, and you can trace back to specific moments in your life where there was a high influx of cash. You could add 1 0 to the document. Quietly, hundreds of millions would be yours. Or there was some project, you had an uncle, an auntie bombarding you with contracts. Foolishly, dwelled in the assumption it's always going to be like this. That has been the downfall of many people. And one thing about the law of time and chance is how you maximize the opportunity determines the next step. How you utilize the opportunity presented determines how the next opportunity would come. Because unfortunately, like the Bible, not unfortunately, but if you look at the Bible, Pharaoh's dream, according to that dream, there were seasons of plenty and seasons of famine. So according to the time of life, seasons will change. Whenever you see the rainy season, there's also a letter from the dry season, I'm coming, vice versa. So if there are bad times in your life, it's also with the letter, good times are coming. If there are good times in your life, it's also with the letter, bad times are coming. Now, should we dwell in fear? Should we sit and bemoan the fact that bad times would come? Hell no. Like in Egypt, seasons can change, but results can remain consistent. If you understand this law I share today, seasons can change, but your results can remain consistent. Invest. Invest first, spend what is left. Another anomaly that comes with seasons of opportunity is you foolishly believe it's always going to be like this. There are athletes, there are people in power today. At the time of their influence, every single person was clapping. It appeared as that politician would never leave the seat, as that athlete would never be forgotten. Take for example Ronaldo and Messi, height of their fame 2012 down to 2020. Who's talking about them now? Very few people. In fact, the only time we recall those two excellent athletes is their birthdays. Whilst touching their career achievements, the younger demographic is eroding them. The same thing with you. Let me give you a real time story. There was this musician, two musicians in fact, at the height of their fame. One decided to leave music in order to pursue a degree. Once I'm done, I'll return. The other, from a very poor background, who gives a shit about school, continued the pursuit of his musical career. After a decade, their results were vastly apart. The other, who pursued his career in music, is now a global musician as I speak. Internationally renowned, won a lot of Grammys, a Nigerian artist. The other guy, who pursued his uni degree, came back to music. The landscape has changed. The kind of beats people vibe to, the kind of lyrics, every single thing has changed. And as I speak, he's struggling currently. And I will not mention their name publicly to avoid endorsements. However, I will give you a hint. Yamal, the footballer, used one of his previous songs as a TikTok challenge. As a consequence, he flew to Spain immediately to show you that he has learnt his lesson quite well. He flew to Spain immediately, performed live, took a picture with Yamal, took a picture with his mom, interviewed that little boy. He utilized that season, and that is what every single one of you must do. In seasons of opportunities, you do not assume it's always going to be like this. In fact, think the opposite. Squeeze the juices out of that seasons of opportunity. Utilize it as much as possible. I don't want to give you names of people who came into seasons of opportunity and they understood this principle intimately. As soon as it struck, even the Bible gives us an instruction. The Bible says, strike when the rod is hot. So when the rod is hot, you strike immediately. To show you the young man learned his lesson, he flew to Spain immediately, performed live, took a picture with all of Barcelona players, and coincidentally, I didn't plan for this, putting on a signed jersey, whatever. But the point I'm trying to highlight, seasons of opportunities would come, and when they do come, squeeze the juices. Make sure there is no drop in that orange of opportunity. We move to the next one. Income generation. This is a very interesting concept. This is what separates men from boys. The problem with poor people is poor people are fixated on the expense column. Poor people are trying as much as possible to utilize their income. And of course, it's a very good philosophy, but it was instilled on purpose. It was instilled to ensure you have a myopic view of life. Another word for myopic is narrow. To have a very short term mindset. Okay, I earn X amount. X goes to savings. X goes to expenses. I have this left. Let me put it in the stock market. And of course, it's a very good life. You gain dopamine from those kind of activities. But rich people see money, see income very differently. Let me give you an example. Let's use the stock market as a case study. The average individual sees the stock market as an income generator, whereas the rich people sees the stock market as an income preserver as well as multiplier. The average guy would dollar cost $100 monthly, and by retirement age is a millionaire. Conversely, the rich guy who invests $200,000 annually, what are the chances of him hitting his millionaire goals in a relatively short time? Exactly. We live in an age of infinite leverage where your efforts can be multiplied by 1,000 folds, either through code, media, or capital. Media, in the sense of what I'm doing, this video will be watched hundreds of millions of times and I will be compensated for those views. In the days of old, if I'm to do something like this, it would probably be a lecture. A lecture isn't something that can be captured. It's very difficult to distribute. The chances of you saying the exact same thing to a very different audience is slim. Capital in this case, which is the nucleus of the conversation, once you have capital, you begin to see a lot of opportunities. Opportunities, it appears as though you've eaten that apple and your eyes are open. Say for instance, if you look at your bank, it offers a 10% APR, whatever. 10% on my $2,000 checking balance. That's nothing. You're saying I have to wait a whole year for $200 income. Nah, I'll try something else. Understandable. But 10% interest on a 20 to $30 million bank account becomes significant. When you have capital, you begin to spot opportunities. So focus more on the income column than the expense column. If you're watching this video, it's most likely you've come across the concept of the law of attraction, the law of manifestation. Unfortunately, when you focus on lack, what does it attract? Exactly. Like attracts like. If you're in that loop of always budgeting, always living in the pattern that is not enough, you need more, something has to happen, this person, X person, you would forever be in debt. You would forever be in that pattern of attracting lack towards your space. I'm not saying you shouldn't budget. I'm not saying you shouldn't clip coupons. But while you're at it, while you're at preserving your income, you should always focus on exponentially increasing. Exponential income would always beat preservation. First thing is, I want every single one of you to understand your savings would never make you wealthy. First, because it's limited. What's the average salary in the US? Let's say 35K. So 35K, for simplicity of maths, before tax, 35K is the average salary. Let's say you had a place to sleep. you had a place to eat, and you walked to work every single day. You saved every penny. After a decade, that's 350 grand, you couldn't even buy a Rolls Royce. Please understand me. You saved every single penny. You worked your butt off. You cranked up like a machine in some corporation, and you still could not afford a Rolls Royce. Understand this point. I'm not preaching materialism. I'm not fixating your income to acquiring things. No, I rebuked my brother for that mindset. I would not preach it to you. I will not advocate you to spend your life savings on a Rolls Royce. But it's cool, by the way. However, understand, focus on increasing your income, not preserving your income. I'll give you another example. Person A earns $25,000. Again, for simplicity of math, before tax. Person B, $250,000. Person A spends 70% on expenses, 20% investments, and 10% in savings. What's 20% of 25 grand? 5 grand, 5K. So 5K is going towards his investment account annually, living a very cheap life. Person B, who earns 250 grand annually, 70% goes to investments, 20% goes to expenses, the other 10% is in cash savings. So 20% of 250 grand, that's how much? 50K. 50K, 5K. Once brother A spots brother B getting that extra whack on his stocky, or going on a vacation, or doing something that appears extravagant to him. Brother B wastes a lot of money. If I had that kind of money, I would invest it all. I would have been XYZ. I would do YZ. I would do, and he's just speculating, counting pockets. If you have to compare them on a nominal standpoint, on a percentage standpoint, who's outperforming via investments? Exactly. In fact, in order for it to be fair, let's switch the numbers. Say brother B went from investing 70% to 20 and substitute that 70% to expenses. So he's investing the same 20% as brother A. Even at that, it still beats brother A's income by far. Yeah, I'm sure I made a mistake in the percentage income. I believe 20% of 25 grand is 250. No, it's 500. It's 500. Why 20%? No, I'm right. 20% of 25 grand is 5 grand. Yes, I'm right. Of course I am. The point I'm trying to highlight, let's be extremely professional here. Focus on generating income and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you when in the next one.